From Geppetto Studios in New Freedom, Pennsylvania, welcome to the Cosmic Geppetto Podcast, your home for inclusive, positive geek culture, where we talk about movies, comics, music, books, and whatever else we feel like. Please welcome your host. Want to see Brad have a meltdown? Just put a slice of cheese on his hamburger. Brad Mendenhall.
Hey kids, this is episode 298 of the Cosmic Geppetto Podcast. It is a mini episode, and it is the final mini episode of the podcast. Next, we have our next episode is going to be with the wonderful Amy Kennerup, where we talk about music that shaped us, and then will be our grand finale, episode 300. So, for the final mini episode, and I hope you guys have enjoyed these as much as I've enjoyed doing them. It's something I sort of wish I had started doing earlier. It's sort of fun, sort of just talking off the cuff about whatever I find interesting, and I don't know, it's definitely a little odd. The sound quality is different because I'm just recording this on my iPhone while driving back from dropping my kid off at middle school. So the subject will be the first 3 episodes of the Amazon Prime series Reacher have been released. They released the first 3 episodes, and then the remaining episodes of season 2 will be released weekly. And it is I think it's a very good show. I had a conversation with Eric Bain, my good friend, whose opinions I greatly value, and he sort of made some comments about sort of the writing and acting. It's definitely not a prestige show. It is an action show. And they lean into all the ridiculous action tropes. But what works is, for me, the casting of Alan Ritchson as Jack Reacher is so spot on, and it is brilliant. And Reacher's character is very monosyllabic. He's a man of action, a man of few words. I imagine it's a little bit of a challenging to act in that role, because you're not given a bunch of long monologues. Your job is to be large and intimidating, and then weirdly smart in stuff that you have no business being smart in. They definitely do the Sherlock Holmes thing where somebody walks into the room and they have a smudge on their left shirt sleeve. It's like, oh, you've obviously been to the Orient. And it's like, how could you know that? It's like, because the ink that you have. I was like, okay. And it's a thing where you write things backwards, where in the case of Sherlock, Arthur Conan Doyle would find some sort of neat, arcane little bit of trivia, and then he would write that into the story. And it wouldn't be really organic, but it would be, oh my gosh, Sherlock knows everything. It's like, yeah, okay. And they do that with Reacher. I think, though, one example this season that I got a little bit of a laugh out of is, if you're not familiar, the story is that Jack Reacher was a former member of the Army. He led a group of special investigators, so basically super military police. And aside from being just this huge jacked up specimen of human being, he was also an excellent investigator. But he ends up knowing stuff that he would have no business knowing. So there was one scene where he was being questioned by the police, and one of the investigators that worked with him went to Rutgers University to study law. And the other investigator, his de facto lawyer, didn't know something, and Reacher said something along the lines of that's when you get with somebody who studied law at the 81st ranked law school in the country. Well, it's a funny line, and it's dismissive of his, for lack of a better term, lawyer in the scene, and he sort of takes a shot at him, and it shows how much Reacher knows. But why would he know that? There's no reason why a former military investigator would be studying and would remember the rankings of legal schools in the United States. So it makes him seem smart, but you realize it's like, well, that doesn't make any sense. Are you saying, and in the context of the show, he's been retired from the military for years. He is a drifter, and which again sort of works. The idea is he just goes from town to town, and he sort of is minding his own business. He doesn't want a home. He wants nothing to tie him down. So he just sort of wanders around and lives off his military pension. And he likes blues music and just traveling. And so, but they're saying that while doing that, he also studies the rankings of colleges in the States. Okay. There was another episode I remember in the first season where, again, he was being interrogated by a detective, and it became apparent that Reacher was aware that he was onto something because the detective started tapping his foot hard enough that you could see a glass of water on the table vibrate. And then later, Reacher's like, I obviously was onto something because you started shaking your foot. It was vibrating the glass of water. There are no fault lines running through this town. It's like, how would you know that in some bumblefart little town that you had no intention of visiting, that do you study fault lines in America in your spare time? It's something done to make him look smart and informed, and it works. It's just, when you think about it, it makes no sense. He should know about certain things very well. He should know about interrogation and collecting evidence, and he would know inside and out military ordnance and military procedure. All that stuff would make sense, but I don't think he would be a seismologist or an expert on collegiate rankings. That said, the show really does work because the action is good and Richardson is very believable. He is massive. He is a tree trunk of a human being. But he's different than Arnold Schwarzenegger. Arnold Schwarzenegger, the best example of tree trunk actors. Arnold, who had likability, charm, and charisma, and this undeniable presence. The one thing that Arnold did not have was athleticism. Arnold Schwarzenegger wasn't believable, really. Whenever he would have to do anything athletic, they would call in a stuntman. The best example, I think it's telling why probably his best movies as an action star were the first two Terminator films, because all he had to do was sort of walk and get shot and then shoot people. It wasn't about him doing Van Damme splits or Jackie Chan daring do or anything like that. He was just a big, strong guy with amazing presence. True Lies, an excellent movie, also directed by James Cameron, like the first two Terminator films. It was more of a, let's put Arnold Schwarzenegger in a James Bond film, and whenever he sort of had to do anything athletic, run from people shooting at him, doing some flips or whatever other impressive gymnastic feats, it was obviously a stuntman. And partially it's because you don't want to do anything where your $25 million star gets hurt. The second, I don't think he could do it. He was not what he was good at. Richardson is significantly more athletic. I think he can do this. He does a lot of the stunts himself, and he can pull them off a lot better. I'm not saying that Richardson is Arnold. It's Arnold Schwarzenegger at his peak was iconic, and Richardson is certainly not, it takes a lot, and that's a once in a generation thing, what Arnold had. But Richardson is great, and he delivers the lines solid with conviction. He doesn't try to do too much. He understands that, and it's a tough thing to do. You have to convey Reacher's presence and charisma and everything else without having quippy one-lines. He just sort of is very matter of fact. So, yeah, he doesn't get to be The Rock, where The Rock always has the best one-liners and has a lot of energy and charm and sort of snarkiness. Richard doesn't get that. It's just he gets to be tall, glowering, and states things matter of fact. And it works. He really does a great job with it. The plot line in the second season is his group of special investigators, the group that he formed in the military. Two of the members have been murdered. He has to, the surviving members, they're working together to try to find out who was after them. And it works. They did a smart job where they have one returning character from last year, this amazing African-American actress who is, in a lot of ways, the only person we've seen thus far that is as good at the Sherlock Holmes style intuition and knowledge as he is. She actually outsmarts him a couple times. And then they have a smart-ass guy, and then a woman who was an accountant, or would investigate accounting crimes in the military, who is very pretty and had an attraction to Reacher when they were in the military. Halfway through the second episode, they're sleeping together. I think, which when it happened, I was like, wow, that's pretty early in the series. It was almost like they wanted to get it out of the way. It was like, okay, well, we could drag this out till halfway through the season, or let's just get it out of the way. We'll get to see Richardson with his shirt off, and we'll get to see the pretty actress in her underwear. It's very much 80s action movie stuff, where if you saw the attractive woman who was one of the detectives working on the case, it's like, oh, okay, she's going to be topless by the second act. the actress is given some pretty good stuff to do. So, and gets to be smart and gets to be confident. So, it's I don't know. I imagine, and it's not fair for me to act like I know this person or have intimate knowledge about her decision-making process. But it seems like, well, I got to be that person, and I got to be ogled a little bit. But I get some cool lines, and I get to beat people up. So, all told, it's worth it. Speaking of Arnold in the Terminator movies, the bad guy from the second Terminator film, the T-1000, whose name escapes me. He's a wonderful actor who's played so many great bad guys, from the T-1000 to the to even like the first Marine movie with John Cena, to he was actually the lead in the later seasons of X-Files. He replaced Fox Mulder. He is the bad guy. He was actually just recently seen on the very good show Peacekeeper that was on HBO Max. He played Peacekeeper's dad, who was a racist, evil guy. He's the bad guy. So far, he wears a suit and he barks orders and he threatens people, but he does it very well. And there was a sort of a funny scene, a little joke where Reacher, one of his foibles is he will always give an alias as a former second baseman for the New York Yankees. And the woman who is his partner early in the series, they rent hotel rooms under the name of Mickey Morandini. I know he didn't play for the Yankees, but he's a second baseman. And she gave the alias of Sarah Connors. Of course, Sarah Connors, the protagonist of the Terminator films, as iconically played by Linda Hamilton. So, there's the Terminator guy, the T-1000, that actor is like, oh, well, that was the second baseman for the Yankees in 1972. It's like, who's Sarah Connors? She's like, who gives a shit? I was like, nice in joke. I sort of like that stuff. I don't always catch it, but I caught that one. That was good. So a little background on the Jack Reacher character. He has been around for a long time as written by author Lee Childs. Lee Childs has written a bunch of Reacher stories. And the conceit was, and the term Molly Sue gets thrown around, and Reacher's sort of that. He is a perfect character. He is the smartest. He is the biggest. He is the toughest. He is the strongest. He is completely morally righteous. And on one hand, that can be very boring. And I've only read one Reacher book. It was the first one. It was the basis for the first season of the Amazon Prime series. I read the book. It wasn't very good. You could definitely see that there was a compelling character at the center of it. The concept was great, but it was tough. And I don't know if it's a thing of Childs not yet knowing exactly what he had, which happens in pop culture all the time, where pardon me, the things that make the character iconic, you actually don't realize they are what they are until after the first or second iteration. The best example I can think of, and I've used this before, is Indiana Jones. Indiana Jones, you think about the whip, you think about the hat, the satchel, the jacket, all those things that are Indiana Jones. Well, in the first movie, in Raiders of the Lost Ark, and originally it wasn't even called Indiana Jones and Raiders of the Lost Ark. It was just Raiders of the Lost Ark. Like, the name wasn't even appreciated for how important it was. And also, the last third of the movie, Indy wasn't wearing the hat. He didn't have the satchel. He didn't have the whip. He actually sort of went undercover. He beat up a German soldier, took his switched uniforms, and so that the final 15 minutes of the movie, Indiana Jones doesn't even look like Indiana Jones. That hat that theoretically he had worn for 50 years, that he received as a teenager when he was betrayed by River Phoenix, and is still wearing as an old man in the Adventures of Young Indiana Jones, where you would have old Indy telling stories. It's the same hat. No, he like threw that hat in a trash can. No, they didn't show this, but he didn't take that with him. So, in the first Lee Child's book, they had a lot of things, but you would also have him describing Reacher sort of high-fiving and sort of dancing, doing a celebratory dance when he figures out a case. And it's like, well, that's definitely not something this character would do. He wouldn't, do the jig because he's so happy that you figure something out. He would just sort of grunt, maybe give half a smirk, and go about his business. It was definitely, from my opinion, a book that was did a great job of setting up other media for that character or future books. Now, for all I know, I only read the first book. It was readable. The character was compelling. The mystery was sort of fun. I just wasn't very impressed with I thought it lacked consistency of characterization, and I didn't think the writing style was anything to write home about. But obviously, a lot of people liked it, and I've certainly have read much worse. Then Tom Cruise starred in two Reacher movies. The first one, Jack Reacher, which was very good. The second was not good at all. I think the second one was called Never Back Down. It was bad. It didn't have the same creative behind it, and just everything that worked in the first movie didn't work in the second, and they didn't have the compelling action stuff. But from the moment he was cast, people complained that Tom Cruise was not a good Jack Reacher. Tom Cruise, who can be a very compelling action star, but he didn't look like Jack Reacher. He wasn't 6'5". He wasn't wide as an oak tree. So you have this 5'7", very very classically good-looking actor. It's like, well, that's not Jack Reacher at all. In summation, I think the second season of Reacher thus far has been very good. I don't think it's as good as the first season, but we're only 3 episodes in. I think some of the plotting has felt a bit rushed, specifically going so quickly into Reacher and his will they, won't they partner consummating their relationship so quickly. It felt sort of like they felt that the creators behind it felt they needed to get that out of the way. But the action's still good. The mysteries are still compelling without being too dense. And they have a great bad guy for the series. Literally, I think they have one of the best TV and movie bad guys working in there. It's like him and Neil McDonough. So I'm looking forward to following this series. And I'm looking forward to future seasons. I think Reacher, the way they have it set up and the way the character is, I think you could have year after year of compelling work. And I think it's because of the conceit where every Reacher's a drifter. You could have a future season, or if they have a bad year, if they have a season where, this plot line didn't work out, or this wasn't a good mystery, or this romantic interest, or these side characters didn't work as well, no problem. Basically, aside from Reacher and the other woman who was one of these special investigators, she's been in both seasons. As long as you have those two characters work, and then you can just move on. Just you start all over again in a new location with a new supporting cast, and theoretically you could keep what does work. They mentioned the case from the first season, and there's nothing keeping them from, at some point in the future, Reacher realizing that he needs backup, he needs help, and he goes back to somebody who he worked with in a previous season, is like, I need your help, and boom, then you could have a 1 or 2 episode arc with some characters that he worked with before. I think the only limitation is the schedules of the actors and the imagination of the creatives. Now, one thing that'll be interesting to see going forward is Alan Ritchson is, I think, on his way to potentially becoming a star. He already is the lead in a pretty buzzy and successful Amazon Prime show. People really enjoyed the first season. It got, and it's different than it used to be. It's not, streaming services are very selective about what information they share, but it's obviously a well-liked show. And he seems like he's one movie away from becoming a star. He is already he also does a very good job on the media side of being an actor. He is a good interview. I've seen him on some late night shows and some other interview, and he was on the guy who played Lex Luthor in Smallville has a very good podcast where he does deep dive interviews. He was great on that. He's charming and likable, but also sort of no nonsense. He's good at sort of setting up very memeable or clickbaity statements. He talked about how he was in Fast and Furious 10. One of the brighter parts of the movie, I would say. And you're looking forward to seeing him throw down with Vin Diesel or The Rock, because with his physical presence, he looks like he could take him. So he'll, and his character survived that movie. So you're looking forward to the big throwdown at the end of the next film. And I know Fast 10 didn't do well, but I think there are reasons to believe that the next Fast and Furious movie will be more successful, because I think there'll be some, with the revelation and spoiler alert, that The Rock will be returning for the next Fast movie. So I think there's every possibility that he's able to ride, that he'll have that throwdown. It could be a highlight of the movie is like watching him trade punches with The Rock or trade punches with Vin Diesel. And then it's just a matter of him picking the right next role. And that's not easy. It's tough to go from buzzy bad guy in a movie and picking the next role so you become an action star. An example of where that didn't work was Khal Drogo himself. Oh boy, I'm bad with names today. The guy who was he was the Russian in Rocky IV. Hold on. This is the problem with doing these Dolph Lundgren. How could I forget the name Dolph Lundgren? Dolph Lundgren. He was in Rocky IV, just this amazing specimen of a human being, and he had a chance. And listen, Dolph Lundgren, not a great actor, an incredibly but great-looking guy with an amazing physique, very smart, very well-educated, and so theoretically it was actually weird that he's not a better actor. As smart and educated and dedicated as he is, that why can't he act? Which just goes to show something about natural charisma. But regardless, he had a chance. It's like, okay, your next movie is going to be, you have a chance. A few people get that Rocky film was massively successful. The Rocky films were such a big deal, and he was great in it. So the thinking is like, okay, and when he chose to do Red Scorpion, which nobody went to see, and it wasn't very good, where he played like a Russian super soldier, basically, who, then turned against the Russians. Didn't work out. And then he did the very, very bad Masters of the Universe. He played He-Man. And it was very, very bad. So that's all it took. And then he never got another shot. He certainly has had success as an actor, but he's had a career that a lot of people would be very happy to have. But he never became an A-list star. He became a B-movie star that occasionally shows up in supporting roles. Johnny Mnemonic, and he'll soon be in the second Aquaman film. There's worse things to be. So, as I said, I'm going to keep watching it, and I recommend everyone else do so. If you haven't, watch the first Jack Reacher movie with Tom Cruise. It was a very good movie. He was just not necessarily the best choice for the character. And definitely watch the first season of the Amazon Prime show. It was very good and sort of rewatchable. I rewatched it not that long ago, and it was really good. So, until then, like I said, we have the 2 remaining episodes of the podcast coming up. Till then, as Jarf likes to say,
see you in the funny pages.
Subscribe to the Cosmic Geppetto Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever quality podcasts can be found. Rate and review us while there. Follow us on Twitter at Cosmic Gpod, and we will follow you back. Unless you're a jerk. We don't follow jerks. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/Cosmic Geppetto. We love hearing your ideas for upcoming episodes. Email us at cosmicgeppetto@comcast.net. The Cosmic Geppetto Studios would like to wish you and yours a happy holiday season.